Breaking tonight, our showdown with Russia gets ramped up as President Obama accuses Vladimir Putin of launching cruise missiles and violating a critical weapons treaty, a provocative move which NATO's top commander has said, quote, cannot go unanswered. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. This Russia story is just breaking. As we were getting ready for air, we are still getting details. This cruise missile testing has reportedly been going on for some time, perhaps for years. But the administration suddenly, just today, and this is just hitting the wires, decided that Russia has indeed crossed a big line, with our president writing directly to Vladimir Putin, accusing Russia of violating the 1987 treaty signed by President Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, president of what was then the Soviet Union. President Obama reportedly sending this letter directly to his counterpart in Russia this morning, as well as having John Kerry deliver a similar message to the Russian foreign minister. Also tonight, just hours ago, the U.S. releasing new satellite images from this Saturday, appearing to provide the clearest evidence to date, showing that Russia is directly attacking Ukraine with deadly force. Look in the lower right of your screen. The green box shows the telltale signs of rocket launchers in Russia. In the upper left, the blue X shows the charred craters of the explosions inside Ukraine. This evidence comes after this amateur video last week, reportedly showing what we were told were Russian military units firing artillery shells directly into the Ukraine. The Pentagon called this a clear escalation, that's a quote, of hostilities by Russia, days after pro-Russian separatists in Ukraine were accused of downing Malaysian Airlines Flight 17, killing almost 300 people. Now, the highest-ranking military officer in the U.S. military, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, says the armed forces are dusting off military plans dating back to the Cold War.
We're looking inside of our own readiness models to look at things we haven't had to look at for 20 years, frankly.
With Time magazine asking whether we are now entering a new Cold War with Russia. I sat down late last week with General Mike Hayden, former director of the CIA, and asked if enough was being done to contain Vladimir Putin. Here's part of his response. What should the American president be doing about that? I mean, what can he do to call attention to it, to make the case for it?
Well, look, the downing of the airliner itself is a big deal. The shelling's a big deal. But as you suggested in your build-up to this, Megyn, there's an awful lot now going on being directed by the Russians against the Ukrainians. I don't think it can stand unanswered.
Joining me now, Governor Mike Huckabee, who is host of Huckabee on the Fox News Channel. Governor, he doesn't think it can stand unanswered, and we're dusting off the Cold War plans as we seem to be upping the ante with our president writing directly to Vladimir Putin about cruise missile tests that reportedly date back to 2008. Why now?
You know, first of all, Megyn, if you're in Ukraine, I don't know that we would say it's all that cold. It's a pretty hot situation going on.
That's what General Hayden said that too.
Yeah, you know, I think one of the things we have to ask, is it just the issue itself, or is it also the timing? And it's a little bit overwhelming when you think about that Russia has been apparently developing this capability for these intermediate range nuclear force missiles, the INF, that was supposedly banned in 1987 in the treaty. But remember, Putin has no respect for that treaty. He said he thought Gorbachev made a big mistake in signing it. So this is the Vladimir Putin who believes that he is sort of Superman. And he's like that teenage boy sitting up in his room. His mother says, don't make me come up there. But his mother hadn't been there in 5 years. He's not the least bit worried that anybody is going to come up there and check on him. And I don't think that a strongly worded letter from Barack Obama, if he can get it sent off before his next round of golf, is going to matter to Putin. He simply doesn't care.
The NATO Supreme Commander has come out and said that, well, they've been informed. We informed them months ago, back in January, according to the New York Times. And they have come out, NATO's top commander has said this cannot go unanswered. If, in fact, there was this violation of a cruise missile being tested, which clearly violates a 1987 treaty that the Russians signed, it cannot go unanswered. But the question is, what is America prepared to do? And is Barack Obama poking Vladimir Putin right now? And if so, why? This is from the New York Times, January 20 2014. Okay, January 2014, when we reported on the cruise missiles being tested. They said, quote, "A public dispute over these tests could prove to be a major new irritant in the already difficult relationship between the U.S. and Russia." Well, Barack Obama seems to be accepting that major new irritant and flagging it in the face of Vladimir Putin. And why would he be doing that right now?
Well, I think one of the reasons that maybe Putin is pulling this off is because he knows that Barack Obama, first of all, is utterly checked out. He's simply not paying attention to the American border, to the situation in Gaza, to the situation in Ukraine. He's checked out. So Putin doesn't believe that there's any real validity to anything that Barack Obama or John Kerry might say. But I think the other reason, he's poking all the boundaries just to see how far can he go and what will be the response. And when I hear people say, well, it can't go unanswered, all right, what's the answer? We're not going to launch a military attack against Russia. The Europeans aren't going to do that because the energy that they have to have from Russia is so important to them that they're kind of being held hostage. All the more reason, Megyn, that we ought to be pouring energy out of our own U.S. soil and make the Europeans realize they've got another option. In other words, there's another pump available, and it doesn't have to be Russia. That's the best way that we can not only kind of get Putin's attention, but break the Russian economy.
I mean, the relationship between the United States and Russia seems to be at a new low since the end of the Cold War. When we have their interference with Syria, we have what they did with Edward Snowden, who we told them not to house, and then they went ahead and did it. We've got, you know, the missile defense, where we backed down on based on Putin's demands and removed a lot of our technology. We've got now obviously their invasion in Ukraine and their seizing of Crimea, and now we've got them assisting these pro-Russian separatists, who the separatists, at least, appear to have shot down a passenger jet. In the midst of all that, now we get reminded by the New York Times that they've been violating a 1987 this is a critical, very big and important treaty. And tonight, Barack Obama seems to be raising that particular issue. I don't know why, trying to raise it with NATO, trying to get allies to be more incensed about Russia. But this seems to be the way we're going, is to dredge up some old disputes about which we're unhappy.
Well, you made an interesting point, and that is that this is maybe one of the biggest points of conflict we've had with the Russians in a long time. I'd say probably since Nikita Khrushchev banged his shoe on the table and made such a scene. I mean, this is a very, very tense situation. But I don't think it's a situation that Vladimir Putin is all that worried about. And I have to wonder, when Barack Obama sat down with the then president and asked or made the statement, well, we're going to have a lot more flexibility after the election. I wonder, were they laughing up their sleeves at the Kremlin, and now they really feel like, yeah, the flexibility, it's not so much that the Americans have flexibility. We got flexibility to do whatever we want. What did the president mean by that? Does he feel embarrassed that he thought that he had this great relationship with Russia, when in fact they're holding him in contempt and pretty much ignoring him?
And they're denying all these accusations about the missile violations, but it appears clear based on the reporting thus far. Governor, good to see you.
Thank you, Megyn. Great to be with you.
Well, Colonel Ralph Peters is a Fox News strategic analyst, and he emailed just a few minutes ago to say he thinks this administration is trying to send a message to both Moscow and the United States that President Obama is, quote, getting tough with Putin. But what is the real fallout from accusing Russia of violating this treaty? Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano joins me now. We drafted him to help us with this breaking news. So they say they violated this landmark arms control treaty. They did it by launching this cruise missile.
Right.
And we raised this months ago, but now our president writes directly to Vladimir Putin, accusing him of doing it. A step that the NATO commander says cannot go unanswered, that if they did it, we have to do something in response to it. You can't just go around violating a major arms control treaty without there being any sort of fallout from it. What is that potential fallout?
Arguably the most important treaty that Ronald Reagan signed in a series of many that he signed. Look, the Russians for years have tried to pull back from this treaty, Megyn. First they said that Gorbachev, well, he didn't have a consensus to do it. And then they said, well, Gorbachev signed this for the Soviet Union and it doesn't exist anymore. And then we're now Russia. We're not the Soviet Union. We're not bound by what he said. All of that is nonsense under international law. This is a lawful binding treaty. There is no Supreme Court. There is no place for us to go. There are no U.S. Marshals.
NATO? I mean, we go to NATO. Are they the governing body on something like this, essentially?
No, NATO is not the governing body. NATO is our side. Vladimir Putin would love nothing more than to pick a fight with NATO. Look, you asked Governor Huckabee, why is President Obama revealing this now? He's revealing it now because he has a 28% approval rating, and he wants the American people to rally around behind him. He's known about this for months, but his options...
And the Republicans, which I should tell the viewers, have been jumping up and down on this, saying, you need to do more. You can't just let him violate this treaty and sort of go to NATO and say, hey, he did something bad, and then sit back. And so tonight of all nights, the president writes directly to Vladimir Putin and does something.
On the eve of his 3-week golfing trip to Martha's Vineyard. I don't begrudge him taking a vacation. It's a very dangerous time in American history for him to be on Martha's Vineyard or anywhere outside where he has access to all the information.
You know,
he
his
needs.
defenders say he has his pen in his phone and he's traveling fleet.
Understood.
He can
His
do
pen and
his
his
job
phone,
from wherever he goes.
his pen and his phone are dangerous. He uses his pen and his phone to tell people how to violate the law with respect to our borders.
Well, he wrote Vladimir Putin a letter with it.
Well, Vladimir Putin will laugh at that letter. Look, as Mike Huckabee just said, we're not going to get involved in military activity.
Right.
We are limited in the sanctions we can impose on them, because when we impose sanctions on them, the sanctions hurt our allies in Europe, and they hurt us when we trade with them.
Even calling attention to this, I mean, if we now don't do something, are we risking looking feckless?
Yes.
So we have to follow through on this.
Yes,
the question is, what are we prepared to do? And apparently we can prove no more than they test fired it, which is different than actually launching it.
We cannot violate it ourselves. We will lose all moral authority in the world if we think that because the forgive me, that's what Putin would want us to say. Because Russia violated this treaty, we are now no longer bound by it. We cannot do that. We have to have the upper hand, but we do not have a president that manifests strength, steadfastness, or security when it comes to the American people. Only God knows what he's going to do in the next couple of weeks. It'll be political. It won't be moral.
Vladimir Putin certainly seems to be testing not just the United States of America, but the world, but us indeed as well. Judge, good to see you.
Likewise.
Unbelievable.